I saw Mr. Beast reply to Sam Altman's tweet being like, please don't make me homeless. And Sam was like, oh, we'll make a video for you, which I think was wonderful. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. People tuning in from all over the world. We've got, what episode are we on here?
16.
Episode 16. 4 months in a row. Haven't missed a part. Impressive. Back to another episode of Internet Explorers, a place where each week we just dive into the week equals big in the consumer crypto world. Josh, we continue to curate just a fabulous list of topics for us to get into, and it hasn't slowed down yet. I think we continue to see more and more and more interesting things happen. Got a bunch of guests today. You'll see that we're joined by Brian Flynn from Boost, formerly known as Rabbit Hole. I feel like there's a little Elon Musk vibe here, where we're going to try to get call it Rabbit Hole anymore. We got Josh here. Hello, Josh. How are we doing this morning?
What's up? We're great. I'm still buzzing from all the IRL interactions in New York. The density of people there is crazy.
It was good.
But also nice to be back on the internet.
I spent a whole 1 hour and 15 minutes in your fine city of Montreal on a layover, and it was not positive, let me tell you. We won't get into it here today, but not the friendliest people in the Montreal airport. As somebody who speaks English, maybe I should have spent a lot more time paying attention to French class back in grade 10, but I didn't, so here we are. And we got Peacenode, who's been furiously eating some minestrone soup. How are we doing, Peace?
Enjoying the soup, full of soup.
I was really hoping for a slurp there, but maybe next time we can get into it. All right, if you're listening to this over on Twitter or LinkedIn, we have one regular listener on LinkedIn. Come on over to live.seedclub.xyz. You can sign in and join the chat over there. This is also mintable on our friends at pods.media. If you're on Farcaster, there's a sponsored mint over there. You just have to follow the C Club channel, and you should be able to go mint it there. Looks like it's minting happily right now, so probably will only last for a few more minutes. So you can follow us over at Farcaster at C Club. And yeah, episode 16, which has been quite the wild ride. I love showing up to these every single week, mostly because I learn new things every week as well. I don't pay as much attention as you do, Josh, and I recognize a few of these things. So I'm looking forward to getting into it with you.
Good thing you're so good on your feet, Jess.
I'm sitting down, Josh.
Good thing you're so good on your bum. Nice. Yeah, I think maybe before we kick it off and hear from Brian, today is the last day for applications for SEO 7. Get them in. We know you're all waiting to the last minute. The number of messages I'm getting being like, our application's coming. Get it in. We're starting interviews next week. It's going to be a few weeks of lots of conversations with founders. So get it in. Tell us why it's interesting. Intrigue us, and we'll have a conversation next week and get into it.
Big month. Big month.
All right, sick. Yeah, we got Brian here with us. So, you announced Boost last week. I think maybe the place to start off is, what was like the journey from Rabbit Hole to Boost, and then we can kind of get into it.
Oh man, how far back do you want? Is the real question. I feel like
there's a good thread right from the beginning. I think that you've been pulling on this thing that you continue to beat into people on the internet despite people giving you shit for it regularly.
How bad airbots are.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it was maybe a better way to distribute value on chain, but
it's the fundamental question that crypto has kind of wrestled with since the ICO days, right? Is like, how do you actually distribute ownership into the hands of the right participants rather than speculators? I mean, the story hasn't changed since the inception of Ethereum. We're kind of still trying to solve that problem today. So when first starting Rabbit Hole in 2020, it was really trying to figure out, well, how do we actually get tokens in the hands of users rather than speculators? And here we are 4 years later, still kicking, still trying to solve the same problem, but under a different name. So that's how we got here.
So like Rabbit Hole is much more of like a quest kind of bounty platform. Is that right?
So the journey in a nutshell was Rabbit Hole started as an application, right? It was completely off chain. So there wasn't any smart contracts behind it. Essentially, it was spreadsheet tech. And 2 years later, we said, well, why don't we actually start putting a bunch of this infrastructure on chain, because it makes sense for protocols to actually start shipping this value themselves rather than us doing it through a spreadsheet. And so we built a protocol around it with sort of lessons learned. We launched the protocol last year and had a lot of success. But honestly, one of the biggest problems we ran into was everyone kept saying rabbit hole protocol instead of quest protocol. So we had a huge branding problem. And so what we realized was, okay, well, we need to actually rebrand this entire thing to realize that there's actually a protocol behind here where rabbit hole is actually just one client in the entire ecosystem itself. So that is why we decided to rename it as Boost. So rabbit hole will be shutting down likely in April, and we'll be moving it to Boost Inbox and be launching other clients built on top of Boost over the next couple of months as well.
I think it'd be helpful for you to sort of get into what this protocol is enabling, because I think, we've talked a lot about protocol rewards, or like the way value flows on chain, and these sort of new business models that are emerging. And, you spent a lot of time on getting that piece right. And I think also have sort of an interesting twist on it as it sort of steps into like the idea of the governance or the DAO-ish portion of the management of fees, I guess. So yeah, what does the protocol do?
Yeah, so it's very, very simple. So you can incentivize any on-chain action with any token, and there's a bunch of use cases where that really is enabled. So most common use cases we've seen is boosting NFTs. So if you want to incentivize specific collectors to mint an NFT, we've seen a lot of creators use it for that. If you're a protocol delegate and you want to incentivize delegation with bribes, we've seen delegates use it for that. If you are a protocol, you want to incentivize voting participation, you can use it for that. So it has all these wide-ranging use cases that we've seen. A lot of L2s use it as well to drive sequencer fees, because we're able to actually incentivize value being driven through the protocol itself. So those are kind of the bunch of the big use cases that we see, but it is really a general primitive in its own nature.
Got it. Very cool. Yeah, I feel like at the core of this is the realization or like insight that like transactions are kind of this like the like core marketing, acquisition, like engagement medium of crypto and protocols and dApps. And I'm curious if you like, do you see this as being just like the kind of crypto native like ad unit or ad layer? Like, is that what this is?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, this is one way of looking at this is, we're looking at right now is Boost Manager. This is sort of the Facebook ads sort of portion of things for interface where you can actually deploy a boost. And when you deploy a boost on Boost Manager, it traverses through the protocol and into any of these boost clients, Rabbit Hole being one of them, where those clients are now earning a portion of the boost being completed. So you can kind of think about it as these boost clients, we call them affiliates. And just like how there's protocol rewards in Sora, there's protocol rewards in Boost. And these affiliates earn a portion of the boost being completed through the protocol itself. So it's a nice way to essentially start deploying these boosts and sort of incentivizing the completion of these boosts itself, or incentivizing transaction activity.
So I'm assuming that the next sort of phase here is really thinking about how you build an incentive, or how an ecosystem develops around this, right? So we've seen sort of like the Daylight Zora pipeline really work well, with Daylight being a major driver of mints there. Obviously, we're seeing Warpcast be like the major driver of mints on Zora today. And there being like a revenue stream that sort of incentivizes those builders to integrate. If you sort of look out 6 months, a year into the future, what does the ecosystem around Boost look like?
Yeah, so one thing we're working on right now is specific Boost clients for specific actions. So a client specifically for getting followers on Farcaster, one for actually getting votes on specific proposals, one for getting specific mints. So each of those audiences are kind of their own niche in some cases. They shouldn't really be in sort of an aggregator approach like Rabbit Hole, kind of a little bit weird to have all the audiences kind of pulled into one. So you'll start to see a bunch of those clients emerge, where other people also building their own clients because they can earn a portion of the fees being in the protocol as well. So we're releasing a couple of those over the next few months, but I would imagine a lot of those use cases kind of having their own places. People can actually complete these boosts.
Got it. Do you have any insights on so people seeing values and transactions within their ecosystem, like how to approach boosting transactions, or like what works well, or how to think about it? Like, is it, in Web2 marketers would, they would run like an LTV CAC ratio, and like, is this a payback period we're comfortable with, and blah 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 blah. Like,
it's a great question.
Do those similar models apply here, or is this?
100%. So like gas cost is pretty much one of the biggest costs, obviously, in a transaction. So most of the time when you're actually want to incentivize boost, you're usually doing it either at gas cost, where it's in a sponsored transaction, or even a little bit above gas cost, in which you can guarantee that the boost or the transaction is actually completed. So we give the tools available to anyone creating boosts to make sure they can price those boosts appropriately, just like how you would in performance marketing, essentially, as well.
You guys, one of the biggest, I guess, Quest boosts, I don't know the right X Twitters to use over the last little while.
You have to use boost now.
Okay, well,
Quest.
That's true. I was never a big fan of Quest. You know that. We've had many conversations. Yeah. But with Arbitrum, maybe if you want to sort of walk through how they used Boost, because I think that's a good example of the sort of scale and potential here.
Yeah, for sure. So we received an Arbitrum grant a couple months ago, and I've been deploying about 1 million ARB through the protocol, basically to incentivize Arbitrum activity through various protocols. And so I think so far we've distributed around, I think, like 60% of it, and generated a positive ROI in terms of the number of transaction fees being generated. So I think we generated around 500K. We generated around 600K with about 500K worth of ARB being distributed. So this just goes to show you're actually able to generate a positive return ROI on the actual ad spend or actual boost being completed here. So you're seeing some activity here, people actually completing some of these boosts in real time underneath here.
I like all these words that Simon says we're juicing the LinkedIn algorithm here by using words like LTV to CAC ratio and ROI. So I think this is super useful. I mean, one of the things that I think is actually super interesting to me, and I think maybe overlooked by many, is how you've been. So, Peace, if you go back to the Boost inbox homepage, and you'll see sort of a number at the top left here, which is the treasury value. And I think this is an interesting way to sort of start to. My understanding is like a major portion of the fees that are being generated on Boost are actually going to this treasury that is then governed. I think you're using Llama and sort of having some I guess, a permissioned sort of stewards or some sort of management of this. And so this idea of like protocol gets used, funds get generated. Those funds can then be used to sort of help support the development of the ecosystem, but also importantly create this sense of ownership and participation from early users that are there. Can you maybe just talk through the strategy that you're running there? Because my hunch is we're going to see many more teams go after something like this.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, we have protocol rewards right now going through the protocol. So a portion of those fees are actually going into this account treasury here that you see here. And so those are all the reward tokens being the protocol. So you see ARB tokens, you see OP tokens, and the people actually are managing these assets are actually moderators and power users of the protocol itself. So they have certain, if you go to the policies page, you could actually see everyone who holds those policies, and they actually have certain controls on how they're actually being used. So that if you click into the roles and you see you could see the actual functions that each of those roles are actually. So if you click into, say, core role, you could actually see all of the functions of the smart contracts that each of those roles can actually matter. So this is kind of taking DAOs to a whole nother level where everything is on chain, but you can actually give these policies to specific people within the DAO to actually make decisions around not just the Boost protocol, but also the treasury. So moderators in the instance of our Discord are the ones that are kind of managing a lot of these assets and choosing which assets to whitelist and which protocols to actually work with. So it's kind of an extension of the core team itself, and they're able to kind of make decisions on how the protocol starts to evolve. So it's kind of our strategy on how to progressively decentralize.
Yeah, I think the progressive evolution of governance around these things is super compelling, where you can there's this number that's going up. There's clearly value being created there. It sort of creates a sense of value in the network itself. And also we know that the vast majority of people want sort of ownership experiences, not responsibilities. There's a small subset that really want to be able to be in the weeds and see value from doing that. And so you kind of have these layers that exist there, which I think is just like very much the right direction to take with these types of networks. You're not exposing some of the hard product development work that you need to do quickly, and it's best done as sort of a centralized team, to the bureaucracy of governance, but also creating a pathway for people to really have an impact on the future of the protocol.
Yeah, that's right. And it's all shout out to Llama for kind of figuring it out. Just they kind of had this core insight that only specialized functions of the protocol should have specialized roles in itself. So not everyone, like you said, wants to be making governance decisions inside the protocol, as it's a huge burden in some cases.
Yeah, Brian, I think I also saw in your announcement post that there's an L2 coming. Could you kind of talk through your thinking behind that? Is that just like, oh, we have so many transactions going through this that this just makes economic sense for us to do it, or are there bigger reasons behind it?
There's a couple of reasons to it. I can talk about a few of them, but I kind of want to save some of the special sauce for when we have the big announcement. So we'll give some alpha here. The most obvious one is this cost generally, right? Gas fees make up the majority of the cost right now for boosts, and so we need to reduce the cost to make the margins just better for users that are completing boosts. I think that's the most obvious one. And I think there's a huge opportunity to actually use the modular stack as well to actually have different use cases, such as sharing sequencer revenue, native account extraction, that will just provide a much better user experience for users who are actually completing Boost itself. So those are just kind of two of the reasons, but we are kind of exploring other things as part of that as well.
A billion L2s blossom.
That's right.
So we have a topic further up here, the StarkNet airdrop, that I think maybe would be good just to jump to, because it is very related to this entire topic and also to a tweet that Brian put out this morning, about basically airdrops equal bad, or at least there should be something better there. And I think I hold a slightly different opinion on it. So Josh, maybe you want to set this up and then we can jump into the conversation around it.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I guess so. StarkNet, which is a ZK powered ETH-L2, revealed their airdrop this week, and I guess it was a bit of a disaster from the PR perspective. So I think they heavily biased towards developers for the airdrop, as well as I think like ETH solo stakers, and a bunch of users who had been using it for a while, providing a bunch of liquidity, have reasonable trading volumes, got very little. Obviously, they were very unhappy with that and kind of went after the team, and instead of being understanding, I think it seemed like the team just fought back and was kind of like, fuck you guys. So the general sentiment on crypto Twitter right now seems to be to send it to zero with haste. So I think obviously the big takeaway here is airdrops are these big important marketing and user acquisition events, but also it kind of shows, or it seems to me to show like a clear misunderstanding of what actually matters here. Like, these L2 wars are a branding battle, not a technical battle. And acting like this seems like a pretty good way to destroy your brand. So that's kind of the high level I got from it.
I mean, I think that's the thing, right? There's this the starting point being like, is this about capturing attention and, or is this about decentralizing or putting ownership into the right hands? And I feel like there's like, a fair, either it's ideological or strategic divide there that, is worth talking about. But I think that the tweet I saw was sort of comparing StarkNet, which has been building for years upon years, and Blast, right, which has been, I mean, they're not even live with anything just yet, and seeing sort of like these sort of almost two experiments that are being run at the same time. One is maximizing for attention, and airdrops are this moment for broad distribution and getting people bought in, and there being liquidity and having the sense of I'm magically rich, and that being like a core value add to a brand or a network. And this idea of like, well, actually, let's be very specific about putting ownership into the hands of people who are actually going to build, and developers are the sort of the core folks here from a StarkNet perspective to go build that out. And I think it's fair to say like those are two strategic angles. I think Josh and I have a point of view on it. I think I would agree with you that this idea of capturing attention is ultimately the game here for tokens, though I think there's fair pushback around whether that is just like a thing for now or if that's going to be a thing well into the future. But Brian, I'm sort of curious your take on either that StarkNet or just on airdrops more generally, if you want to comment.
Yeah, I haven't looked too much into the StarkNet airdrop, so I can't comment too much on it, but I assume it's kind of more or less the same as others, where they did a single time large airdrop. Some users were pissed, probably because they didn't get it. probably seeing a lot more of these protocols kind of aiming towards developers. But at the end of the day, you're kind of, Richard Chen had this great talk at DuneCon in October, just talking about how much money these protocols are just dumping down the drain as airdrops, and something of the hundreds of millions of dollars, not like low billions of just tokens that are not seeing getting it back. And a lot of the protocols who do airdrops actually end up regretting it because they see how much money they're actually spending on these airdrops and not seeing return on it. Most of those users are not returning. They end up actually just dropping off completely. And there's a lot of research that shows users who actually buy into the airdrop after the fact are actually have more retention in terms of voting and actually governance participation. So there's a lot of research that just shows how it's not actually, there's no actual ROI there. Something we've always say to projects when we're working with them is, hey, instead of doing a single time airdrop, you should actually be doing 10,000 airdrops. Do one every single day or every single hour for the next year or two, and you can use Boost as one potential way to do that. It's the same exact mechanism. You can actually measure results that way. You can target exactly the way you would do with airdrops. And then you could actually just see how those users are responding to that incentive and changing it over time. So I think it's just a matter of, hey, we're all kind of using this one-time airdrop mechanism because it's kind of been this reflexive, nature of protocols. We haven't seen something better, but we're hoping that protocols will start using something like Boost, as it is a much more measurable way of actually distributing these incentives to different participants.
In my mind, this sort of comes down to like the debate of like the casino or the computer or the casino or the vending machine. This, there's sort of like this idealized world that I think we all agree with. Like it would be best if we only put assets in the hands of really great people that were going to be long-term supporters of a protocol. But I just don't think we live in that utopian world. And really the number one thing that all of these products and projects are sort of focused on or need to be focused on is capturing attention. And I think the idea of, I think it's kind of even difficult to judge the success of airdrops because we don't really know what the counterfactual is, right? Like you don't know if a certain L2's airdrop or or product or token that's come out would have captured the same amount of attention if it has just been done in a much more programmatic or specific way. And so to me, that's like the unfortunate truth of what we're building right now is that there is the vast majority of users today are here for the casino. I don't think it means we need to play into like all the worst dynamics of the casino users, but I think not sort of tapping into that early excitement and attention that can come around from an airdrop is probably a missed opportunity. So I would sort of be looking for like, can something that's being done and, if we do it, let 1,000 airdrops rain over the next 2 years, is there a pathway to actually having that be big and loud enough and capture enough attention to compete with, a more one-time airdrop? And I think my guess is, yeah, I mean, probably, right. There's probably a middle line to walk here. And I think you see that in like trying to remove Sybil, attackers, or, there's somebody who's bridging 0.001 ETH into, protocols maybe, and doing that 10 times is like probably okay for them not to be getting an airdrop. But I think this idea of not focusing on attention and not realizing that tokens are really attention units and probably one of the best ones out there for sort of aligning that value and capturing that value. I think that's a missed opportunity. Though agree, there's going to be winding, middle path to walk down. But my whole takeaway from seeing so many, token launches is if you don't sort of step in and break into that, out of that sort of anonymity or into that next level of consciousness, you've probably missed out on a big opportunity, and it probably would lean towards actually wanting to do a bit of a bigger noise-making drop than one that has a risk of kind of just falling flat. Yeah,
no, that's totally fair. I think something that we've seen from experience working with Arbitrum and some of these L2s, though, is that the incentive actually matters more than the attention itself. If there is a profitable opportunity to transact, you don't even need the marketing, you need to get the attention, that there will be someone on the other side who gets that incentive. Sometimes when you create these levels of abstraction, whether it's off-chain points or NFTs or something where you create a expectation in the future, it's really hard to know as an end user what the incentive is to transact. You don't know if you're kind of being gamed or if it's actually, something that's worth your time. But as you start to know what the incentive is more, it becomes a lot more clear that this is actually worth the time in the first place. So I think you're seeing a lot of these teams, try to leverage that attention games to get people to transact. But it's kind of leading into a lot of this misaligned expectations with, this kind of goes off-chain points dilemma.
Yeah, I don't think we have time to get into that today. I mean, it seems to me that there's a lot of protocols out there that have probably strong incentives, but haven't been able to break into the level of attention that actually makes those compelling and interesting things. And so, yeah, I think there's also, something like an Arbitrum. Like to me, it's like, what is the 15th or 20th L2 going to do to capture attention? And like the OP and Arbitrum and maybe even some of these early ZK ones maybe have the benefit of being first movers in it. But is there room to be able to sort of step in with a more vending machine like distribution later on? And of course, there's a whole lot of other benefits that come along with it as well, right? Like if you're looking to get centralized exchange listings, really the thing they're looking at is, are you able to actually drive meaningful attention around that market? And so there's sort of like a market making aspect here too. I mean, I think you started off this whole conversation with like the right thing, which is it's the consistent challenge that we faced from the earliest days that I think, we probably all agree has still not been solved, which is how do we actually distribute ownership and value in these networks as effectively as possible? And, maybe we're still in this place where, it's like marketing, right? If 50% of your budget is being wasted, but you don't exactly know where that is. Of course, over the last 20 years, we've seen a lot less of that waste happen as we moved into more of the digital land. And I guess that's probably the case here as well. We'll have you back on to talk about off-chain points at some point, I'm sure. But
yeah, it feels like a brand marketing versus like performance marketing kind of dichotomy to me, right? Like the airdrops are great because you get this huge halo effect around just the people who actually receive the airdrop, whereas like the going probably like the boost or like incentivized transaction route, like the people that are exposed to that and doing it are the people who are like directly targeted and getting the airdrop. So I think there's clearly just a world where
can we just get back to ICOs, please? Like this was probably the most effective tool we had back in the day. At least if we were trying to run at a better version of ICOs today and we could actually go do that legally, I feel like that would be a far better way to align incentives, because we're not even talking about incentives with investors and team and all this sort of stuff, which is just a whole other mess that exists in these networks today. So
yeah,
come on, Gary, get with the program. Get off.
I mean, that was actually another problem with the Starkware, is that people realized after getting pissed that the like token generation event was actually 2 years ago, and like 13% of the supply unlocks in like a month for the investors and and early teams. So it had red flags all over, but.
Well, I think, it's an incredible team running a strategy. Yeah. And I think the best part of crypto for me is just that we get to see all these economic models out in the wild. And, we can all have our opinions today, but really it's our, looking back in the next 2 years, 3 years is really going to be the time to make judgments on this. So anyways, let's let Brian leave us now before he says anything else and gets me on another rant. You can go and sign up for Boost Inbox today. You just mint yourself a pass and you get put on a team. You'll see the number go up in the treasury balance out there. And Brian has shared with me a bunch of things that they're working on. And I think it's going to be a compelling thing to be a part of. So make sure you go and give that a sign up. Look at that. You got a lot of users on there already.
That's right. Yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's been fun.
Thanks, Brian. Have a good one, man.
Take care.
Oh yeah, getting into the nerdy shit right at the top.
Let's go.
Good old Brian. I saw I was on Farcaster the other day, and Foam Space, which is one of the early 2017, 2018 location network. The idea was like you could verify that your location on chain. Super tech heavy product. Anyways, they posted a picture of like some of their nodes finally going live. Team's been building for a long time. And it just reminded me that nerding out over that was the first thing that's how I met Brian, was just like randomly on Twitter, I think, talking about Foam. And man, did he have some crazy ideas back then. It makes Boost look like a very simple and clear product. But
Are you saying Foam Space?
Yeah, it was up. It's Foam right there.
All I remember, I feel like they had a sick website, didn't they?
Dude, they have a sick
website. Yeah, really solid team. They've I mean, talk about building through the bulls and the bears and the bears and the bulls. These guys have been around forever. I don't know what the current state of the product is. I'm pretty sure I still own some tokens somewhere. So, but anyways, all right. What else we got here? Oh, I mean, it was a big week for love. Big week for love.
Big week for love on the internet. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we had Brian on. Was it last week? 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. To talk about Unlonely and Love on Bridge. And the show happened this week. They ran 5 episodes where, they had a person and many potential dates come on, and basically people could control the length of the dates of the show with their vibes token. But I think the interesting thing, or the cool thing that I've been seeing through this process, is just how much transaction volume they've been able to drive by integrating, like meme coin or like trading mechanics into a live stream. And I think the shows this week so far have averaged around like 100K in transaction volume from people speculating on, I think, both the outcomes, but also wanting to dictate them. So if you push it into the green, they go on a date. If you push it into the red, they end it. And, I think like if you assume they take a 5% fee, I don't think that's right, but assuming a 5% fee, like they're making 5K per episode and doing it on like a very small audience, right? I think they have a couple hundred viewers, and like that's just like a fundamentally new business model for streaming, right? Like the old model of, you need tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people to like slap ads onto and hopefully make some money that way. Whereas like, you can now with crypto, with tokens, by creating this like meaningful context that people want to transact within, you can, serve a smaller, more niche audience and make it like pretty economically viable. So I think this is, I don't know, it's super interesting case study around that.
Yeah, I think it's a great example of, the importance and the value of creating social context around transactions or around mints. I think, I know it's something that you talk about a lot with the teams that we work with. This the idea that's a big wild world out there, but if you can draw a little box and invite people into it, and there's sort of some fun mechanics, and I think the design space for what fun mechanics are pretty vast. That it can really drive actions in a meaningful way. And so very small viewership compared to what a Twitch streamer would need to see to have comparable revenue. It's a very simple mechanism. You're minting or you're selling. Like, this is a very, very simple mechanism. And it's been really cool to see the Unlonely team sort of iterate on that quite a bit. I know they've been talking about prediction markets, etc. But again, this seems to have sort of landed on a very clear and easy to understand reason for why somebody should want to transact. And I think, it's interesting to see how willing people are to go do that for the energy and the entertainment value of it, which again, I think it's another great example of sort of the social context, but also the value of attention and being able to represent that on chain and drive meaningful revenues from it.
Yeah, totally. I think just another great example too of just like serving crypto culture, right? Like there's this emerging real culture here. The people that are here are a specific type of person. They're different than the people that are not here or using, hanging out on Web2 products. And, you can just go serve these people, integrate the types of games that we like to play and build great experiences around it. I think maybe like the last, go ahead, Peace.
Well, I was just going to say, I suffer from like chronic skeuomorphism, but I love the idea of just like token, like this form of token voting versus like SMS voting. That was really exciting for American Idol. Like the fact that, for the first time ever, you can text your results in and everyone can participate in this. Like even just seeing a chart like this over 4 or 5 seasons is what I'm really curious to see.
It'd be really cool to see like the eras match. There's like who was on with Lee at what point in time, and being able to sort of see that over top of the graph would be an even more direct way of showing that. That's text voting for American Idol was such a breakthrough back in the day.
It was crazy. And it cracks me up because it is one of those things where I remember they were talking about like SMS all the time. And anytime I hear people talk about like how people can't handle technical things and how crypto is too complicated, I just like look back at all the things that actually reached critical mass adoption, and they have all the same traits.
T9.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, I think the last point on this, maybe I think Anthony shared it with me. I don't actually know where he got it from, but it was comparing just like the some like Web 2 products and their like revenue per monthly active user, and some like comparable Web 3 products and their revenue per monthly active users. And they highlighted, I think it was Steppen, Axie, So Rare, and they all make over $100 per monthly active user per year. And then they compared that to like Strava, Calm, Duolingo, who all make under $10 per MAU per year. So obviously, like the scales are operating on are completely
Wow, that's
different.
like,
But I think it just like highlights the
I think that's like
opportunity here.
Facebook North American user level of value that they're capturing per user. I think that's crazy.
Yeah, it's huge.
So it's, we get some more. We get more love and leverage happening today, and then if you also want to get into some deeply technical stuff, Cassie's absurdly smart. So Equilibrium, building some interesting things. That's one to check out as well. All right, I want to be a main character. I'm in my main character era.
Let's move on to this. So main character. Yeah, here we go. Feast, nice. So someone we know, but I think they launched this anonymously, so they will remain nameless. But they launched this cool experiment this week called characters.app. The domain's characters.app, and basically like the core concept of it is, the product drops like meme coins for main crypto characters, and the first two they dropped are Gensler and Elon. But there are a few things that I find like pretty interesting and novel about it. I think the first, and it's funny because they built this before ERC 404, but it's actually a great ERC 404 use case. But they're using like 1155s to actually, bring images or JPEGs alongside like meme coin kind of mechanics. So when you mint or buy 50 Gensler, you actually get 50 generative Gensler images of varying rarities, and then you can like save your rare ones and burn the other ones back into the bonding curve if you wanted to. I think it would be pretty cool to see what this could look like with ERC 404s. I think like the piece that actually I'm really intrigued by is just, it's like the first like cohesive kind of end-to-end facilitated like meme coin experience I've seen. So the like buying and selling, the charts, the chat, the transaction feed, your P&L, it's all like displayed in context in this single interface, which is, a pretty interesting and big improvement, I think, on the like Telegram bot, deck screener, Telegram chat stack that most people use. So I think they had some sniper issues on launch, and I think some pushback on the high fees they have that they're working through. But it's a pretty cool product that's worth clicking around in. Gets your imagination running.
Yeah, I remember playing with this on testnet, I guess probably the end of last year. I think the two thoughts on it are, I agree. Interesting sort of meme coin wrapped experience, if you will. I also think the piece, just always blown away by how fast crypto moves. And I think the question of like, if you were to do this again today, how would you go do it? And I think it's pretty clear that 404 is like the emerging meta that would really capture a lot of attention here, and just speaks to the challenges of, building this sort of comprehensive product and all the work and testing and et cetera that goes into doing it. And it's sort of up against the speed with which things evolve in the space. So I expect we'll see more versions of this sort of pushing into new directions here soon. And I mean, just based on the conversations we've had over the last few weeks with builders, this idea of memes, meme coins as a platform or the entertainment experiences around meme coins, very, very clearly going to be a big part of this next wave, given the talent and interest that's building around it.
Yeah, I think to your, how quickly things move point, like it's just so important to get into market really, really quickly, because if it takes you 6 months to get to market, like you're going to be behind some narrative. Something new will come out that has fundamentally changed what you're doing, and it's probably no longer cool again. So I think, this getting released back when we were playing with it like late last year, probably like it could have been, I think I'm sure there were improvements, but it could have been released, and then maybe early on the 404 narrative. But fun product.
He's got some epics here.
Yeah, I think this is so much better than 404 because, like, I don't know. I remember there were some projects. It wasn't like Funks or VLN Funks. It was some ridiculous punk derivative, and they had like a re-roll option where you could basically like remint and get different traits. But this is such a more fun version of that, where you're like basically just grabbing a whole bunch, keeping the rares, burn the rest. Team earns on fees, and that game alone feels worth iterating on 1,000 times.
Yeah, I think there are meaningfully different directions you would have to go with this if you're going to do 404. But are they? If you only keep the epics and the rares, are they really epic and rare at the end of the day?
Such a good
maybe
question.
maybe the commons are actually the rares piece.
Damn.
Yeah, what
I mean,
about that?
I don't know. I'm gonna burn 43 Gensler about it because I gotta get more. Yeah, so I should be saving my commons. That's
Maybe
right.
I don't know.
Just do what you do with most things, which is just mint them because you like them and then never sell them or burn them. Because I mean,
You don't know how.
you like burning NFTs, Peace?
I've only burnt a couple. There's a couple that I'm like, this just needs to go. I can't believe I did this.
Burning feels different than selling too. Like
Well,
you're re-rolling. You're still in this.
Right.
That's true.
And man, I don't know. I recently just changed private keys and have a wallet, have my old wallet that has like all my L2 NFTs in it, and it's pretty devastating because I'm like, fuck, they're worthless and I love them, and maybe they're at risk, and I don't know what to do.
Well, it's a fresh start piece. So
I
fresh
know.
start every cycle.
I know.
Learn from the past and not repeat our mistakes.
I just can't believe there's not a good consumer drainer. Like I tried one that claimed to be exactly that, and it was excruciating. Couldn't figure it out. Paid, whatever. I won't name them, but it's ass. So if you can build a consumer drainer, you'll be the king of the world because I'll pretty much pay anything to use it. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, yeah, let's jump over to Sora, I guess. Is that how you say it? Sora?
Oh
yes, this is the new OpenAI text to video model that they released teasers to yesterday, and I think it's not out yet, but they were generating a bunch from like prompts that people submitted on Twitter, and I don't know, it's crazy. Like, look at this. I saw some videos comparing, I don't know, there's some like famous Will Smith eating pasta generative video from like a year ago, and they were comparing like what it can do now to that, and it's just like in a year people are going to be able to make like production, like Hollywood quality, like feature length films. Obviously not on like the narrative storytelling piece probably, but in like the like visual, like aesthetic quality probably. So just it highlights how quickly this is moving. But I think like anytime I see this piece, you want to bring up the tweet by 113 that I dropped.
Yeah.
This is like always where my head goes, and it's like so in this world where we have ubiquitous, easy, infinite content creation, infinite software, like what matters, right? What has value? And yeah, maybe Jess, I'll throw that to you first.
Well, I saw Mr. Beast reply to Sam Altman's tweet being like, "Please don't make me homeless." And Sam was like, "Oh, we'll make a video for you," which I think was wonderful, but I think is also a good example, right? Like, as much as Mr. Beast was sort of an innovator in a format and a style, really what he's built is a brand that it does exceptionally well at capturing attention, but it's broken up beyond just that ability, right? There's an appreciation and a sort of, it's etched into people's brains. It's in a category somewhere. And so I think we've long been believers that ultimately it is to brands, whether those are people or sort of like this idea of being a part of something, make something people want to be a part of, the bigger adventure that you bring people along with. I think that's very likely the case here when you have individuals or communities that are able to just create on steroids now. It'll be like the ones who will win are the ones who have created the context and desire to co-create amongst each other and towards a similar goal. And I think that can be a pretty destabilizing thing for a lot of creators, but ultimately I think it's probably just an accentuation of the path that we've been on for the last 15 years as new creative tools, even longer, moving into the desktop publishing era, where really it's created a lot of destabilization, but also enabled a new level of creation to sort of emerge from it. And I think we're seeing a ton of interest and energy around the importance of crypto in an AI world. A lot of infrastructure talk about it as well. We've backed a team called Spawning, which has sort of been creating music models, but also trying to really layer in the economic models that allow for folks to have their work recognized and to be rewarded for it. So I think there's just a huge open design space around that. But really we need to start to be able to prove who the creators of these things are and then have economic models that actually drive value back to them. And I think it's just a huge potential open space. I'm in a couple AI chats with some folks that are founders of LLMs and associated companies, and really what it seems to come down to is it's a big race for computational power right now. You know, the amount of energy and computation that goes into creating something like Sora is really insane, absolutely insane. And so maybe be long data centers and Intel for the next little while is just seems like to be an insatiable demand for this stuff. But every time it seems like OpenAI comes up with a new thing, and then there's, it creates this sort of rush for a whole bunch of other teams to kind of step in and either make use of it or to sort of roll out other versions of it. So I expect the next couple of weeks and months to be pretty mind blowing as far as seeing how these tools start to emerge, in the open source world as well. But then I think they bring creators into Sora as well. Video games, it's can be kind of mind bending. I mean, the one thing I sort of keep in mind is like the world of networks, or the world that's governed by networks, just becomes a lot more volatile and uncertain, and probably more fun and terrifying at the same time. Mm-hmm. So I would just expect more of that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I very much see that, like brands just become more and more important, or value, like increasing amounts of value, like flows to brand and community, or like participants within brand worlds, and they'll just have opportunities to serve consumers in like increasingly expansive ways. Because I just think there's going to be like our entry points into like content and software worlds, and our way of like filtering and making sense of this just sea of shit that's going to come. And I think like, you can see a world pretty easily, right? Where, with like crypto protocols and AI now, where these like single aspirational kind of like identity defining brands can be banks, they can be movie studios, they could be art galleries, they could be fashion labels, they could be social networks, they can be like software providers, like all together pretty easily within this like world that you associate with and have ownership in and care about.
I think this is a topic that just, when we talked about airdrops earlier, it just continues to reinforce the belief in really needing to go big and capture that attention, right? Like I think in a world with AI specifically, like, yes, you're going to have a very, very long tail, and I think that's valuable for a lot of people. But you also, the winners become bigger and bigger winners. Mr. Beast is a great example of that. If you look at the disparity between the top 10 YouTube channels and the 10% and the rest of the 90%, it's massive. Like the heads get way, way bigger, and the tail gets way, way longer.
Yeah.
And so depending on what you're building, I think being clear about which part of that tail you're likely to end up in, or you need to end up in to be successful. So more bigger winners, and then I think a long tail of folks who have like a lot more power at their fingertips to go do creative and interesting things. I'm a pretty big optimist around AI. I don't know if that's fair,
Me too.
but I think that's where
I think this is like ultimately, Mr. Beast has this big brand. He has this big attention base. He's like a sense-making entity for a lot of people. So like, if anything, like I just see this as giving him more superpowers to just like expand how he can serve people.
The question to me is like, what happens to the next 10 potential Mr. Beasts, right? Yeah. And I think, the reality is like, as new networks come out or new paradigms come out, that's where the world opens and new opportunities emerge. And, we've seen that across the sort of Web 2 dynamics. So it's probably going to be the same there, but maybe that's where my pushback on it would be. Like, there is sort of a big uncertainty around how we actually represent the humanness in these networks right now. And it seems like we're moving a little bit away from the human-centric piece, especially if you start to apply this to any other creative industry beyond just YouTube.
Yeah, agreed. All right, cool. Let's
go Piece. Well, no, I just want to get this in. Because I had this reaction, I guess, to Sora and the idea of the taste economy. And Jihad wrote me, he was like, first, I got to DM you to make sure that you're like being serious before I comment on your thing, which is
copy pasta.
A good idea. Well, so it was the take that I have about the fact that we're actually leaving the taste economy and entering the truth economy. And he pointed me to this post that Matt Dryhurst made that I thought was really good and was touching on a similar thing. I'll pull it back up. Because he says it nicely, where he's like, taste by most definitions is not a moat, and in most cases is autoaggressive and predictable. And I think there is this like there's like a disconnect probably in language that we all use or something, where like what I think AI will do is make taste even more accessible than the internet already has, to the point where the only thing that actually matters is the truth. And brand and those associations are going to be centered around like real stories, real people, and things that are actually good for us. And
I mean, that's super interesting. I mean, I feel that even right now, as I scroll through Instagram or YouTube in my relaxing phase of my day, and just have such an aversion to the manufactured content that's there versus like the more authentic content. So I don't know if that is,
I think
will contain, but
yeah, I mean, I think that is like a symptom of it. I think we're at the very beginning of this phase change, where people are going to be exhausted by aesthetics and they want the truth.
Go back to Lonely Girl, whatever that was back in the early days of YouTube. Oh, those were good days. Just saw Brian jump into the chat here saying that he's restreaming this through Unlonely right now. So to shout out to our Unlonely folks. What's up?
If you buy vibes, Jess will take your shirt off.
This is definitely not true. Oh, do you see the shirt I'm wearing today, though?
Oh, yeah.
It's our Slow Rodeo first version. Super excited.
All right, let's move on. We got some shit to cover still. So Telegram trading bot. So Delphi just dropped a good report this week, just kind of outlining the state of Telegram trading bots, and taking a very like investment focused perspective on them. Kind of how do you value them? How do you think about their future? I think it's very worth reading. They're these like cash flow monsters right now that are, I think, worth having a pretty solid understanding of. And I think what's especially interesting is they're very much these like commoditized products. So comparing, the relative success of BananaBot and BonkBot and Unibot really gives you like a pretty like clean slate to look at, how impactful like a go-to-market strategy was, or like a token model was, or like the impact that fee structures have on usage. So I think it's worth combing through and taking time on. I think one thing that I found funny was that I think they come from more of the TradFi world, but they very clearly prefer the more like fundamental based products of Unibot and BananaBot compared to like the meme driven BonkBot. And I think they said BonkBot is kind of in this like awkward middle ground, because it's both this like big kind of meme token and meme world, but also, a tool, and it has a utility. And I think it's funny because I take very much the opposite side of that and think Unibot and Banana are in this like less desirable, awkward position, because they're just being valued based on pure fundamentals and don't have this like thriving community to like leverage for network value and distribution. And, ultimately, I think they highlighted that like BonkBot is trading at, I think, a 30 price to earnings ratio, and, Unibot and Banana Gun are like 6 and 4. And that's just like that's a feature. Like that is just proof that BonkBot has brand value. It has community value. It has like desire to be a part of the thing, and the other two don't. So that's just like that's a feature, not a bug in my mind. So it's just funny kind of testing that feeling and assumption while reading that.
I love it. Haven't dove in. I mean, shout out to the Delphi guys. The research reports have been
it's great.
Epic over the last little while. And yeah, I mean, do you want to be Coca-Cola or do you want to be RC Cola? Right? Like there's a whole bunch of goodwill on the balance sheet of Coca-Cola that I think is clearly a huge competitive advantage. That's the brand value there. So I'll go long the meme version of this over the fundamental version any day.
Let's go.
I mean, I'm not long any of them right now, which makes me kind of sad. But and again, the sort of like using Telegram or Forecaster or Lens, these sort of like emerging networks where people are to be sort of the points of distribution and capturing that social value, I think is another big trend that we see across the board. And having these open networks so we can go build things like applications within is just such a superpower. And again, so many teams we're talking to are looking at Telegram as like a distribution channel just because of the number of eyeballs that are there.
Yeah, totally. All right, let's.
Was this always gray? This wasn't always gray.
I can't imagine. There must be a new era for BonkBot.
It's all clean and technical.
Well, maybe this is the bot version of Bonk. I bet you went to the non-bot version.
You just go to Bonk.
Bonk.
Right.
This is weird. Yeah.
They're trying to be serious because there's some clear utility here.
Right.
Let's slide to finding love on chain. So I was grabbing coffee with Xerox designer yesterday, and he brought up this this tweet from Nikita Beer, I think that just highlights that people download apps for 3 reasons, right? It's to make money, entertainment, play, and then finding love is the third one, and kind of a heavy-handed way to say like status, right? But finding love, or so I think like it was an interesting conversation because crypto clearly has immense potential and fit largely, right, for making money and providing entertainment. But really, like what he was wondering was what's going to be like the like crypto native medium or app for finding love. And then I was also talking to Jacob, and he was kind of asking me what I'd focus on if I was running Sora. And I think my answers to both are kind of similar. And it's like, I really think we need products that make the on-chain media we've created and collected to matter socially. And we just don't yet. We need to want to follow and slide into people's DMs based on their collecting taste or what they've created. Like we need collections that have organic attention and actually like be things people want to explore versus just collecting and they go into your wallet and no one ever sees them again. But thought it was like kind of a fun prompt. So Jess, curious what you think.
Well, I think one of the most underutilized and maybe even developed features of Warpcast is if you go on the desktop app, you can see the NFTs that are associated with an account. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of trash right now because you have zero control over what you're showing there. But I think you see what I think gallery is running at, right? This idea of being able to really curate, your gallery to start, and there's rolled out a lot of social features over the last little while. I think they started pushing at this, and being able to sort of associate. I guess right now we're still in this sort of awkward zone where Twitter's rollout of NFTs was just kind of such a miss. Instagram obviously stepped back from it, and it's just because like the context there is not right. People aren't showing up there to be doing things on chain and wanting to sort of show off on chain. But I expect that as these Web3 social networks really start to grow, that will be one of the core pieces, and having the ability to sort of curate and highlight and tell a bit more of a story around it. It was a similar sort of evolution I think we saw from blogs and into the modern day of Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. There's a lot of products that emerged in the sort of middle zone that allowed you to curate more of a story and galleries, etc. I remember using that for some of my early adventures. So yeah, I think there's a lot of room to sort of evolve and to add more functionality there. And my guess is that those teams are working on it or will prioritize it eventually. Yep,
totally. All right, cool. Let's quickly hit the YC request for startups. So it's always fun. They drop this. I don't know. Do they do one a year? I'm not sure. But it was fun.
No, it's been a while. It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Done the last one. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So fun to scroll through this and just kind of step out of our like deep crypto world and focus for a minute and just see what what the rest of tech is excited by. So they listed a bunch of machine learning AI applications, space and climate tech, spatial computing, a way to end cancer, a bunch of kind of less interesting stuff. But I think the two things that like really stood out to me, obviously scrolling through this, was one, just it's like exclusively B2B. There's like nothing consumer centric in here. And the second was like the only slight mention of crypto was in like the stablecoin finance category. So like, I get it. Like they've built this Web2 B2B unicorn factory, but like to not have one consumer category and for like payments to be the most interesting thing that you could come up with within crypto is just kind of
I love it, right? This is the evolution of being a startup founder back in the days. We talked about that image that was shared with the very first YC batch. I think it was Sam Altman was in there, Alexis Ohanian from Reddit, all these young and weird kids that were doing something strange and getting paid $20K to go do it rather than going to work an internship job. Into startups being like the big predominant business. And, it's now an alternate from, going from the Ivy League into banking. Well, you could go from the Ivy League and into startups. And I mean, clearly these things are extremely valuable, and having a ton of money and support towards teams that are going to go solve any of these problems is just like, I'm very, very thankful that we have like the best, a machine that is bringing the best brains in the world to come and work on this sort of stuff. And also, I just love that, what we're doing here in crypto, and especially in consumer crypto, is just like this tiny little niche that feels so inevitable to us that are building in it right now. You can feel the energy and the talent, but it's just such a baby little category compared to it. So it gives me this feeling of like, yes, this is what people are focused on now, but we know what people are spending their free time on building in crypto, and you see the potential there. And I think this world's going to look very different in 10 or 15 years, down the road. So very happy for them to be focused on stablecoin finance. Clearly one of the breakout, products or opportunities in crypto. But oh my gosh, it's
like just the most obvious, like it's like the most.
I just want a more interesting
thing you could pull out of this entire ecosystem.
I would just like to have a more interesting world, a digital world for us to go play around in, and also would like for cancer to be solved and all this sort of stuff. So we got our own little lane. Let's go rock and roll.
I love this sneak diss that they put into PayPal too, where they say that they look like Apple sharing 99-cent music in the age of streaming or something like that. I don't know why. It's just a funny comparison.
I love it. Give us one lightning round, because why not?
Yeah,
it's this dude. This I fucking can't believe he posts this.
That's good. That's good.
Speaks for itself, really.
Speaks for itself.
In the quest for compute, why would you stop at 7?
Well, clearly he's posting it because whatever that report was obviously like completely misconstrued, and like nobody's going to raise $7 or $8 trillion. Like, give me a break. But I think it does, like the amount of money that's going to sort of be flowing into compute around AI is just going to be insane. And yeah, fuck it, why not? Why not 8? Huge miss to do 6.9 or target acquired. The reply guys and Sam Altman tweets is just so good.
Yeah,
so good. There we go.
Nice.
That's the move for sure. All right, folks. Thanks for hanging out with us again.
This one's funny too.
Oh God. Okay.
That's a good one to end on.
Yeah.
All right. Get your applications in. Let's go.
They close shortly. We're back here every Friday morning or afternoon, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 Eastern time. Internet Explorer is your place just to hang out and learn about the weird world of consumer crypto and explore the interesting sides of the internet. We got a big couple months coming up. Very excited to talk to all the teams that are applying. I think you literally have 55 minutes to get the applications in, and then we will get the deluge of people being like, I was a bit late, can you accept it in, etc. So just don't be one of those people. Go get that application in today. It's going to be a great batch. Our job is to go out and just find the most compelling examples of consumer crypto, bring them to the world, help support them to the world so people can see all the things that I know all of you see right now, which is just the energy and talent and excitement and the tools and the infrastructure we have to go build. So very excited to jump into that.
Be the defining product that forces YC to put it on their next request for startups.
I would be very happy if they let us just continue to go play in our little world for at least another batch, but I think it's inevitable. I'm sure there's a bunch of other things to share, but we're over time. Thank you all for showing up, especially the hardcore users here in our chat. To all those who are minting at pods.media, continue to do your thing. We're going to do a whole redo of the entire sort of Internet Explorer's website soon. So I see your comments. Yes, we're going to update the leaderboard. We got a lot of things that are going to come. It's just on the roadmap. But thanks for hanging out with us.